7, 2, 1.
Many years ago, there was a bonus zombies map in Call of Duty which nobody could have anticipated. Unlike modern zombies experiences, it had no XP progression system or weapon camos, no perks, gobblegums, or microtransactions, no advertising leading up to its release, and no character dialogue. But enough about that Ops Arcade. Where do you start with Nocturne and Toten on World at War, the map that's older than more than half of the Black Ops 4 player base? Well, on a superficial level, it's obviously an extremely simplistic, claustrophobic survival defense game. There's really no storyline in this map other than maybe retroactive revisionist history done years later. Apparently there were German army trucks that were transporting zombies and Element 115, and they were struck by a plane crash from the Allied forces? Why the hell not? There's no real Easter eggs either, other than having music play on the radio, I guess. There's some fantastic music that plays on this map, by the way. Listen in. There's only like 3 rooms in the entire map, 1 box location, and no perks. And for all these reasons, many people would argue that Nocturne Toten hasn't aged very well. They'll sometimes ask, does Nocturne Toten still hold up? They might say it serves as a nice time capsule, but it's an experience clouded by our nostalgia. Or that there's no real objective to the map or incentive to replay it.
I thought we'd have a new objective by now. But no! You guys just never give the community what they want!
I saw a tweet about a month ago which was simply an image of the ray gun in the Black Ops 1 box. Of course, it was a trip into the nostalgia file for many, as Twitter users retweeted the hell out of it. When I hopped on Nocturne Toten recently, I didn't feel so strongly about seeing the ray gun in the box, nor did I expect to. But that doesn't mean I didn't once feel that way. That feeling I did have many years ago was very real. It's not some misremembering of past events blinded by nostalgia. No, the ray gun appearing in the box was indeed awesome. And for me, and probably a few others, that eventually stopped being so awesome because of how many times that event was duplicated, when experiencing it not only on dozens of subsequent maps, but also like hundreds of times within each of those maps. When I loaded up a more recent map like Horizon Traha or Blood of the Dead and got the ray gun, I didn't really give a shit. However, many players new to the game do care because of how novel the concept is to them. The ray gun, which is the most recognizable asset in zombies, could be used as a metaphor for the more subtle issues in the zombie scene. Perhaps the perception of the game and how special it may or may not be is shaped by your level of experience. A lot of people are quick to blame Black Ops 4's issues on the overhaul of the perk system, previous lack of marketing, new storyline, zombie movement, and all this other superficial crap that any hack could point out. But really, the issue just might be that the game is no longer special to them, whether they've come to terms with that or not.
Nocturne Toten. I skipped a lot of school to play that map, stayed up all night, and that's all I wanted to do, was be a pro zombie player. Had nothing else to look forward to in my life.
A lot of people would also argue that Noct has little to no replayability. That's a word that fans love to throw around these days. You'll hear it a lot on the zombie subreddit. The previous popular phrase was crutch perks.
Don't play the game! Uninstall it! You boring...
As much as people like to put the screws to the COD Zombies Reddit, there are actually quite a few posts on there which have caught my attention in a positive way the past few years. You know, like 0.01% of the posts or something. Anyways, I'll share one of them right now from user Adam Shump. Okay. So he actually made a series of posts on the topic of replayability, and while I don't necessarily agree with every single sentiment of his, he does mention a lot of stuff that I myself have expressed in the past, and which I think is worthwhile. Anywho, he was replying to someone who was complaining that players in Black Ops 4 have very little incentive for completing the Gauntlet challenges that they recently added to the game, because apparently you would only get a sticker for completing the Gauntlet flawlessly. A sticker is pretty lame, but good old Adam fairly asked, what would the reward have to be for you to consider it worth your time? Personally, I would consider that if the game is no longer worth playing because of a lack of in-game reward content, then maybe play something that fulfills your wants more. Maybe, if you think about it, the game deep down is no longer fun for you, and your hope for some reward is the only thing bringing you back. 2 gorilla thumbs up for Adam. He also left a similar post regarding BO4 multiplayer in Blackout where he stated, I doubt most players even enjoy playing the game beyond the shiny digital BS they're hoarding and will forget about it in years' time. Maybe. The point I'm driving at is that you should play a map like Noct or a game mode like Gauntlets based on its intrinsic merits, rather than some weapon camo or character gear which is not only absolutely inconsequential in the game, but which also provides very little or often no utility in the real world. Players do know why a sticker is the reward for a flawless completion on Gauntlets, right? They're not going to unlock something desirable behind a challenge that the overwhelming majority of players are not able to complete. To be fair though, stickers are pretty lame.
Which one do you play? Okay, you forks, I appreciate just what you're trying to say, but I gotta disagree with you. COD is the better game. In Halo they give medals. Wow, medals, that's cool. I remember getting stickers back in elementary school.
Let's talk briefly about how the map came to be, because I find that more fascinating than discussing the actual map at this point. The story of how the birth of Nazi zombies came to be is well documented at this point, maybe with a touch of the old revisionist history at times, or so former disgruntled employees Jimmy Zielinski and Jesse Snyder claim.
Jimmy Z is trash.
Wow, Thermic. Hit a man while he's down, why don't you?
Don't hold out too long. If things look like they're getting rough, get out of there. It's time to go.
Anyways, this dude Jesse Snyder, along with some help from others in the studio, managed to create a prototype of a mode which was modeled after tower defense games, even though higher-ups told him it was too risky, too much work, and didn't really fit the tone of the rest of the game. Nonetheless, a small team worked on the project during their spare time in secrecy. That momentum and hype within the studio sort of carried it to the point where it was pretty polished, and then released as a bonus mode that was unlocked once you completed the campaign. They did have a pretty stacked cast for the World at War campaign though. Great, memorable performances from top A-listers like Gary Oldman, Kiefer Sutherland, and Craig Houston? Like, the lead writer of the zombie storyline, Craig Houston? Well, that's a bit of a drop-off. Noct and Toten, like a lot of the earlier maps, was basically put together using assets from the other modes. Noct is based off the multiplayer map Airfield, or maybe Airfield is based off the campaign mission Hard Landing. There's a lot of other interesting anecdotes that Snyder offers regarding the creation of the mode, so if you're a fan of zombies, I would definitely recommend reading his blog post, which will be linked in the description, which he posted on the same day that World at War was released. It's pretty cool to read the final paragraph of the blog, over 10 years after the fact, which states, "Sure, we didn't get everything we wanted in there, but I'm fairly sure there'll be more Nazi zombies in the upcoming months." Yeah, just a little more zombies this past decade. Here I am, 10 years later, playing some map with bots on my team. Ah shit, I went down. Can somebody pick me up? What the hell, it's Craig freaking Houston. Sir, I take back what I said earlier. Revive me! I mean, forget about the 50 plus other maps that exist. Let's just take a look at how often Noct and Toten has been remastered, remade, rebooted, or reimagined throughout the years. Noct, of course, originally came out in November 2008 for Call of Duty World at War, and 1 year later it was included in the mobile game for iOS called Call of Duty World at War Zombies. They later changed the name of the game to Call of Duty Zombies, and then they changed it again to Call of Duty Zombies, once they realized that they had caps lock on or something. It was developed by the class acts over at IdeaWorks Game Studio. Apparently Big D wasn't the lead QA back then, so maybe the game is actually bug-free. Then there was Noct and Toten in Call of Duty Zombies HD, which was a ported the mobile game from the iPhone, now on the iPad with some minor upgrades and optimization. Well, you might be asking, if Call of Duty World at War Zombies was such a hit, why didn't they make a Call of Duty World at War Zombies 2? Well, they did, which came out in June 2010. This is basically the same thing as the first mobile game, except it now included Shinonuma instead of Noct and Toten. But Noct could actually be played on this map as a microtransaction, but then it became free later on or something. I don't know, it's confusing stuff.
Now you have to microtransact to even get in the lobby.
What? No, I don't think that's necessarily true. Soon later, you have the remaster for Black Ops 1, which came out in November 2010 if you purchased the Hardened or Prestige editions of the game, which many people did not have. They then re-released those classic maps as part of the Resurrection DLC in August 2011, and they added the Mule Kick perk a month later as well. The mechanics on this remaster are, of course, smoother, along with some helpful additions such as monkey bombs and the thunder gun. Pretty damn good map if you ask me. Fast forward to Black Ops 2 in 2012, where the first room portion of Noct was included near the cornfields in Transit. You know, the map that fans suddenly love because they gotta be contrarians. Then in January 2013, Call of Duty Online was released in China, which included a mode similar to Zombies called Cyborg Rising, where one of the maps called Outposts was a reimagining of Noct. A few years managed to pass by without any more Noct being thrown at our faces, and then it came back in epic style by being included as part of the Revelations fan service extravaganza in Black Ops 3. That color palette, though. And then about a year later, Noct was remastered as an individual map as part of the Zombies Chronicles DLC in May 2017. This is where they added stuff like the Wonder Fizz machine, Gobblegum, so on and so forth. You know, gameplay mechanics that were never intended for the map when it was originally designed. I don't mean to be dismissive of others' opinions, but if you legitimately think that the remaster is superior to the original Noct, well, I think that serves as sufficient commentary on your critical faculties.
Asshole.
I think when evaluating maps, it's important to take the historical context of the game and its community into consideration. Many casual players would likely agree that Noct is one of the most challenging maps, and as difficult as it may seem to you nowadays, it was even tougher back in the day when general strategies that we take for granted nowadays were not even fully developed. For example, running a train or kiting the zombies was an extremely novel concept at the time. These were the primitive days of zombies. I'm a broken record at this point. YouTube videos of proper strategies were few and far between, Twitch didn't exist. Have a discussion on the zombies Reddit, Discord servers, or Twitter to share tips and news. Lucky if you found a halfway decent player in a public lobby. Or for the really sophisticated, some weirdo online forums. These were the days where rumors like a Hitler zombie boss were heavily prevalent. There was always that mystery. Like, you probably knew it was a bullshit rumor, but you wouldn't necessarily dismiss the possibility of it being real unless you were a smart mark. Many players naturally gravitated towards camping as their go-to strategy, particularly in the grenades corner with the staircase by you being closed off. Some players soon afterwards realized that the main room was the best place to group the zombies in, and that the Thompson area wasn't too shabby either. On co-op, you'll typically have a player in each of these two rooms. I can't say definitively that a high-rank community didn't exist back in 2008 or 2009 for World at War. There were certainly people attempting lengthy games and get into high rounds, yes, I'm well aware of that. But from my experiences and research as the official Zombies historian, it really wasn't until Ascension that the community as we know it today was firmly established. That map met two conditions. One, a relatively large player population, and two, largely legitimate leaderboards. No other maps until Ascension met those two conditions. Except for good old DOA. We'll end the video with some surface level observations, kinda like fun facts about the map for those of you who haven't really played it that much, if at all. Some of these features carry over to some of the other maps, but anyways, let's get through this quickly. If you grab two different double points drops, they'll combine for quadruple points. There is a purchasable scoped Kar 98 cabinet. Obviously a troll of sorts since it's absolute trash, but I was dropping some sweet 360 no scopes with it. Only map ever with no perks. 2 hits and you're down. Nocturne and Totem on BO1 originally had no perks, but in September 2011 they added Mule Kick as I mentioned earlier. Only first person map where the characters don't have any voiceover lines. When you bleed out, you can spectate your teammate in third person mode. Cool beans. On solo, there's only 24 zombies per round. When combined with the fact that the flamethrower successfully kills enemies in the later rounds, getting into a high round on solo is really easy.
Knocking him out like Teddy Ball Game!
On co-op, the revive timer is only 30 seconds, so you better pull some magic trick out of your ass if your teammate goes down at an inopportune time or location. Zombies don't smack you through the window, but they'll happily jump through a boarded window at times. The sound design of the enemies is kinda bad, which actually contributes to the eeriness of the map, as you always gotta check your back and make sure there's no ninja zombies sneaking up on you. And obviously the zombies are very sticky, as you're always getting caught on them and other parts of the map as well. But sometimes it's to your advantage as they push you out of a predicament. And the map's translated name, Night of the Undead, is an obvious homage to George A. Romero's first feature, Night of the Living Dead. Rest in power, George. Well, that's about that. Feel free to let me know your thoughts on Nocturne and Totem in the comment section below. Oh, and thanks to the 506 of you who participated in the poll I had on Twitter about which zombies video I should make next. Surely more people voted in that poll than will actually watch this video.
You should try to get Jimmy Z on here, and
He ain't touching you with a 10-foot pole.